You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions Special Episode 2. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
And welcome to another supplemental episode of the Tricorder Transmissions. We are your hosts, Jeff Hewlett
and Craig Cohen, and this week we are talking Arena, and we have with us a very special guest.
Yeah, so let us introduce to you Mr. Jeff Ferry, friend of the show and fellow Star Trek fan.
And I'm currently wearing my red shirt.
No, let's hope you make it through the episode.
I'm sorry.
Oh, man. We should have discussed that ahead of time. Blue and gold shirts only.
Yeah,
this one because
we know they're at the laundry right now.
Oh, all right. So
Jeff Ferry, if you could, real quick, maybe give us a little bit of your Star Trek history, and it doesn't have to be exclusive to the original series.
I would say the first thing I probably ever seen from Star Trek might have been the movies, the original movies, like 1, 2, and 3. And then that was right around probably 85, 86, and that led right into the Next Generation, which was my bread and butter Star Trek growing up. So I really, cut my teeth on those. By this point, I've seen every episode of every series of Trek by now.
Nice.
But I watched Next Generation as it came on, Deep Space Nine as it came on. At that point, I went back and watched the original series. And then Voyager pretty much killed it for me for a while.
Oh, yeah.
I got about 2 seasons deep, and I was like, you know what? I'm done for a little while.
Yeah.
Later on, I went back and revisited all of those.
Yeah, I had a similar Voyager experience where me and a buddy of mine who was a huge Next Generation fan, we were watching it every week. He would tape it, and then we'd get together and sit down and watch it. And we lasted a couple seasons, and then we sort of tapped out. I eventually went back and caught up myself, but that was the end of my Star Trek TV viewing. I actually have yet to watch an episode of Enterprise.
No, you're missing out. Enterprise was a good show.
Yeah, really, Enterprise was not bad, especially the last 2 seasons. I think seasons 3 and 4 were pretty solid.
Yeah, 2 was a bad season.
Yeah, 2 was rough.
An unfortunate theme song as well, from what I understand.
Oh man, I'll never forget that. Oh, God. I remember I was so amped up when that show was coming on, and I was sitting in front of the TV the night that it was premiering, and when that song came on, I seriously questioned whether or not I was watching the right channel or the right show.
You kept hitting the info button on your cable box.
I'm like, is this it? Is this Enterprise? And sure enough, title flash. I was like, are you kidding me?
And I kind of thought they were just going to do that for the first episode.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, this is just the first episode special.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. So we are not talking about Enterprise today. We are talking about the original episode, the original series episode, Arena. Now, me and Jeff already provided our scene-specific commentary for the episode. And what we're going to do here is sort of just have a deeper discussion about the episode itself. But I guess before we do that, we should maybe talk the plot a little bit. So basically, the episode starts with the Enterprise getting a distress call, getting to the planet, and discovering that it's been completely wiped out.
Yeah, pretty much. And they were getting these hails from the planet to come and visit down there and take advantage of some of the hospitality they had to offer and just check in and see how things were going. So, they were originally thinking that they were going to go to a Starfleet outpost and see some fellow officers down there, but the scene quickly turned around when they beamed down.
Yeah, and this really, really sort of heats up Kirk. He is really sort of a man on a mission and gets the Enterprise. They get in hot pursuit of the enemy vessel of the folks responsible for this, and then basically Kirk disappears from the bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll happen. Yeah, I mean, I would say that happens a good half dozen times over the course of the series, where
Certainly
someone
does.
just disappears off the bridge.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been shocked, right?
Yeah.
So then we really get to sort of the meat of the episode, which is basically the captain of the Enterprise, Kirk, facing off in a one-on-one battle without weapons with the captain of the other ship. And we learn that the race of the alien captaining the other ship is the Gorn, who is a pretty iconic character. And basically, there are things on the planet that if you have watched a lot of episodes of MacGyver, you'd be able to figure out how to build a gun, and which is basically what Kirk does. And he defeats the Gorn. At the end, he refuses to kill it. And the sort of the being that's been watching over them, that's responsible for them being engaged in this battle, says, Kirk, you have proven that humanity has potential. I am going to return you both to your ships, and maybe we'll check on you in another couple thousand years. Did I leave anything out?
No, I think
I think you hit it all.
Yeah, so discussion over. No, I'm just kidding.
That was great. We'll see everyone next week.
All right.
I have one question. I don't know if you guys handled this in your scene-specific commentary.
Okay.
But when they're going to the planet, he says they're getting hailed from the planet, and they keep telling them they need to bring down a tactical team.
Right.
Why? I never understood why.
Well, I think from what I gather from watching the episode, and since the transmissions wind up being a ruse, so maybe perpetrated by the Gorn, they don't really come out and say that it was perpetrated by the Gorn, but you have to assume that it was. Maybe the Gorn assumed that, hey, if they beam down their tactical team, which are the smart combat ready guys from this starship, and we kill them all by bombarding them, that ship will be much easier to either take over or blow up, right?
That's actually a pretty good theory, Jeff.
Yeah, that was better than what I came up with, which was a huge hole in the plot.
Oh, sorry to fill that hole in. I could dig some back out if you want.
Yeah. So Jeff Hewlett, we were supposed to have another guest and friend of the show with us, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. A lot of people will remember her from our first supplemental episode where we talked to some folks from the Star Trek The Experience, and we were supposed to have with us today April Hebert.
Yeah, she was on board. She's really gung-ho to come on the show, and she got called away at the last minute, and sends her regards. But she did take the time to type up some stuff for us to read in the episode, some of her thoughts on Arena, and she actually included a special piece on the Gorn at the Star Trek Experience.
Oh, beautiful. So, I don't know if we ever talked about this, Jeff Ferry. Did you ever get a chance to go out to the Experience there in Las Vegas?
Yes, I did. About 98, 99, I went out there 2 or 3 times.
Oh, wow, cool. So you were there sort of for the early years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you probably had an encounter with April at some point.
I may have.
Yeah, she was there the whole time. So
all right, cool. So there was a sort of a Gorn statue on display at the Experience. Is that what April sent us notes about?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read off the little paragraph that she sent over. So April said the Gorn had a place of honor at Star Trek The Experience, right next to the M113 salt creature at the bottom of the stairs when you entered the time station, which Craig and I'm sure remember, and Jeff Ferry, I'm sure you remember that too, that was down there. Craig and I have pictures of ourselves with it. And she also went on to say that Bobby Clark, the actor who wore the Gorn costume in this episode, would visit occasionally. He would sit at a booth and sign autographs. And for a price, of course, you could have your picture taken in between the Gorn statue and the Gorn actor.
Oh, my God.
That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome.
Oh, that's a picture worth having right there.
Definitely. Definitely. Unfortunately, he didn't happen to be there any of the times that either Craig or I were there. And I guess he wasn't there when you were there. Jeff Ferry.
It was just the random Klingon roaming around.
Yeah, we have our pictures with him too.
Yeah.
So he's a pretty cool guy. So that's about it for the Experience, but April just wanted us to have that little snippet there for us to share.
Oh, very cool. Big thanks to April for sending that along. You know how much we love the Experience and love talking about it. So one of the major plot points of this episode, and we sort of follow Spock as he watches Kirk via satellite pay-per-view, whatever, where he basically puts together things the same way that Kirk does, that there's elements on these planets that can create a gun. Now, that show Mythbusters, and Jeff Hewlett, you pointed this out, they basically devoted a segment of an episode to seeing if you could, in fact, build the same cannon that Kirk built. How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, I'll add a link to the video clip that the Mythbusters have up of this experiment, and suffice it to say, the cannon as built by Kirk and replicated by them did not work, and wound up actually taking out Kirk as well. So yeah, it's a shame to watch, but April actually sent a little note about it, and she actually said Gorn 1, Kirk 0. But it's a good thing that Star Trek doesn't follow along with science exactly as written.
And that's a great clip because they sort of have like a cardboard cutout of the Gorn, which is really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to watch that. And they're kind of hiding behind this protective shielding so that none of the stuff flying out will hit them, but they're watching along as the cardboard statue kind of falls over.
Yeah. Now, do either one of you guys have a moment when you're watching that episode where he's putting the cannon together and saying, "Oh, that won't work," or are you just like, I mean, I never really thought about whether it would work or not. It was one of those things where I was like, "Wow, it seems like they put a lot of thought into this. Of course, it's got to work."
Well, I think if you can accept that thing walking towards him is a threat, and that is if you bought in enough that that's a Gorn, that's a threat, then the cannon is the least of your problems.
Yes,
that's true. But the only time that watching that episode, the only time that I think that I doubted it for a minute was that if you watch as Kirk is handling that hollow piece of bamboo or that log, whatever it is, he seems to dump stuff into both ends. It seems to turn around at some point, and you wonder how the stuff's not falling out of it. I always wondered, maybe he stuffed stuff in there that we didn't see to keep the stuff in, but it looked like he was just shoving, the powder and the rocks and the coal and the diamonds in there, and it was just this hollow tube with nothing holding all that stuff in. And he eventually dumps it out, of course, and puts it back in, but that was something that I picked up and I kind of questioned.
I feel like if I would have done it, I would have done all that, and when I lit the fuse, there would have just been a little fire, and then the Gorn would have eaten me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have made it past dumping the rock on the Gorn. I think after that didn't work, I might have been like, you know what, Gorn, I'm weary of the chase as well. I'm just going to lie down here and take a nap, and if you find me, oh well.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how big that planet or asteroid or whatever that thing was, but it stands to reason that, Kirk could have gotten a fair distance away, and the Gorn probably wouldn't have been able to find him at any length of time. I mean, especially without Kirk hearing him coming, because he just kept on making those noises all the time, right? You'd always hear him coming.
Unless he's got like the Jason Voorhees thing going, where you run and he walks, and then he just ends up in front of you.
Eventually, yeah, the whole tortoise and hare thing, right? So he's always going to catch up.
So Jeff Ferry, I know you mentioned how sort of unthreatening the Gorn sort of appeared. One interesting thing, Gorn related, is the Star Trek game that came out last spring that basically sort of made the Gorn look a lot more threatening. Did either one of you guys see this?
I saw the clip. Clip online.
Yeah.
It was a step up. It was 2 steps up from the original series and 20 steps up from the Enterprise episode.
Yeah, they kind of made him look like sort of what I'd imagine, it almost seems like they flew in the lizard from a Spider-Man video game.
Yeah, really.
You think the same thing, Jeff Hewlett?
Yeah, you know me, I'm a purist. I'm an original series purist, and I know that things have to evolve and characters will get redesigned and things as time goes on. With computer technology as it is today, I wasn't surprised that they made it look more lizard-like and organic, but it kind of bugged me that they changed the basic form of it so much that it kind of did. If you didn't know that it was supposed to be the same creature, you wouldn't have put that together in your head, because it looks so different. Kind of like the Klingons, right, from the original series versus the Klingons from Next Generation and beyond, all of a sudden they grew that weird looking head.
Yeah, but I gotta give them. They're better in the Next Generation. It's tough for me to go back and watch the original series.
Yeah. And
didn't
didn't they try and retcon that or something?
They retcon it in Enterprise. There's an explanation given for it.
Oh, okay.
And in Deep Space Nine, when they have the episode where they go into the original series, when they ask Worf about it, he said it's something we don't discuss with outsiders.
Yeah, that was the way I was going to cite that example.
So the other thing I noticed about this game, based on the commercial footage, is it almost seemed like there were a couple of different style of Gorn in the game. Did I missee that?
I don't recall that. I didn't get to actually play it or watch an extended demo. The only thing that I really saw was a couple of screenshots and the commercial.
The one with William Shatner.
Yeah, the one with William Shatner.
That was an instant classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is, so it's this commercial has 82-year-old William Shatner, sitting on the couch playing the Star Trek video game.
Yep.
And I think at some point he starts complaining, and then they do the reveal that sitting next to him is a guy in a pretty convincing Star Trek the original series Gorn costume.
Yeah. Yep, sitting right next to him on the kid. Supposedly they're playing multiplayer, I guess, and Kirk Shatner gets killed in the game, and he's mad because the Gorn was supposed to have his back, right? It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So he let him die in the video game and smacks him on the arm, and then things go downhill from there.
Yeah, they basically recreate their fight
at the
same speed exactly that they did, almost 40 some odd years earlier, which was really, really funny. And I thought the Gorn costume here looked really good. I mean, if you really do a side by side comparison, it's maybe a little bulkier, but also the vocalizations that the Gorn did. At times, I almost thought until the end that they had flown in audio from the original series.
That's pretty cool. I didn't really. I have to go back and watch that again and check that out.
Yeah, apparently that game's a real turkey, though.
Oh, yeah. Recently, JJ actually came out and was poo-pooing it. He was saying that he felt there was a big missed opportunity. He was supposedly heavily involved early on in the development and then didn't like the direction the game was going and kind of washed his hands of it.
Wow.
It's a long, proud line of bad Star Trek games.
You're not kidding, Jeff Ferry. You are not kidding.
So are we talking like games for home consoles or for
all over the place?
Every system.
Yeah. And speaking of which, there's another Star Trek game that's a kind of like a World of Warcraft style Star Trek game. It's a massive multiplayer online game in which you can actually play a Gorn. It's a playable race in the game, and I demoed the game early on before that was an option, and I was so excited because I really like that style of game. I'm thinking, wow, this is great. It's going to be a Star Trek universe, and I'm going to be actually kind of be able to be in it with other people, and it was a huge disappointment, just like every other Star Trek game.
I think you probably played it at the same time I did. I played it the first 2 or 3 months it was out.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need.
Yeah.
I don't need to play anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you got the allure of being able to captain your own starship and do away missions and all this cool stuff, and you see all these neat aliens that are from the show, and you're like, wow. And you get into the game, and you're like, this is it? It
was, having played other games, like I've played World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm, me too.
That's very well run, very well refined, and Star Trek was just a big mess.
Yeah, glitchy, laggy, and it just didn't live up to the hype and for a huge franchise like Trek, I just can't believe they can't get the video game side of it right.
You know what? To me, it seems like, and we've talked about this in the bulk of our episodes, that it seems like nobody knows how to handle the Star Trek franchise in general. I mean, the fact that there is not a TV show on the air right now that capitalized on the sort of popularity of the 2009 movie is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, same here. And it's not for lack of trying, I believe, on the writers and producers' part. They've been wanting to do a show, and they just can't get the networks to jump on it.
Yeah, and I think the saddest thing is that JJ might have been the guy to do it, and now he's sort of off in Star Wars land for God knows how long. I mean, he'll probably be involved with those movies for for years. I mean, so I think any champion that show had that really had any kind of stroke, is now sort of with another girl, if you will.
Yep. Sure seems like it.
Oh yeah, we went from you figure what, like the late '90s or mid '90s, you had 3 series almost running right on top of each other, and now there hasn't been one for almost 10 years since Enterprise goes off the air.
Yeah, it was like that 1, 2, 3 punch of like Insurrection, Nemesis, and Enterprise. It was like the trifecta of fail. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
Well, and I'll tell you where Enterprise suffers is each of these shows is a product of their times. You watch the original series; it's very '60s, kind of counterculture-y, and Enterprise is that post 9/11 craziness.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't go down. You watch it years later, and it comes off real weird.
It came off really stiff to me.
Yeah.
It just felt really stiff, and
it also has the Voyager problem of, name memorable characters from Enterprise.
Yeah, I agree. Besides the Vulcan chick in the cat suit and Archer, I probably couldn't name what's it? There was a guy named Trip, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know the other guys' names.
Meanwhile, I could walk up to anybody on the street and say, "Hey, name somebody from the Enterprise." They might be able to name me 5 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Original series characters too, I bet, or Picard and Data. Right.
Yeah.
So do you guys think that's why ultimately Paramount went with this sort of, reboot alternate timeline where they're like, the franchise is so damaged at this point that the only way to get people back on board is to give them Kirk and to give them Spock and to give them Scotty and give them all the stuff they know.
I think that's exactly what they did.
I agree 100%.
People love Kirk. People love the Enterprise. Give them what they want.
Yeah. Do you think that ultimately sort of doomed Star Trek, though?
Yeah, because I don't know what you would do now if you start a series. Do you set it in the JJ universe? And when do you set it? Do you set it in Kirk's time? Do you set it where the continuity was, which was over 100 years later?
Well, I've said this before, and I'm probably way off base, but I always thought that another show set in the same time period as the original series with another ship, different captain, different crew, would give you the same feel, and you could have the opportunity to have the other characters, Kirk or Spock, somebody just cameo on the show or be in an episode here, an episode there to tie it to the original series. But I think that would be the best way I would love to see that happen.
But would you put it in the original continuity, or would you put it in JJ's universe?
Well, I guess now you have to put it in JJ's universe unless you want to have 82-year-old William Shatner showing up on the show as Kirk.
What I'm saying is, if you put it in the original's continuity, you run into the problem the Enterprise had, that you can't have anything happen that doesn't happen later on down in your continuity. That's where
true.
Enterprise would run into problems, because they'd be like, well, we'd like to have the Ferengi in an episode, but we know that they don't get contacted for 100 years.
Well, it worked for the Borg. They shoehorned them in.
That was the one good one.
Yeah.
They shoehorned in about 3 other races they shouldn't have met.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you put it in the JJ universe, you have a double win at least, because you have a clean slate and you have, the current actors who can probably jump on the show here and there as they can fit in. That might work. Because you probably can't get that crew to do a full-time television show because they're all off of
you
movies.
Might be able to get them to, show up for 5 minutes in your pilot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, look what Marvel's doing with this whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, where it's a part of the Marvel movie universe, but none of the the big actors are in it. They did an episode recently where they referenced Thor. It almost seems like that could have been sort of an opportunity for them to do a Star Trek show in the JJ universe without actually having to pay, any of the actors or expect any of the actors to work a TV schedule.
Yeah, these are all really creative ideas. Unfortunately, all the creative ideas are people with absolutely no juice at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost feel like we could probably devote a whole separate podcast to discussing potential Star Trek TV shows.
Yeah, and my rewrite of the of Kirk's death scene from Generations can go in there too.
Yeah, yours and 100,000 other people.
Let's have a podcast about rewrites of Kirk's death scene from Generations.
Oh goodness! But there have been a lot of sort of Star Trek related TV things going on. We talked about Mythbusters, and
Mm-hmm.
if you dig a little deeper, or you sort of go towards the parody route, you find some stuff. Is there anything that sort of jumps out with either one of you guys?
Well, I know that you see Star Trek. I mean, it's constantly name checked on
Yep.
shows like Family Guy and Big Bang Theory and all those.
I'm sure.
It's just such a part. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Your average person gets the jokes because
Yeah.
they know enough about it.
Yeah, and even Robot Chicken went and had an episode that featured the Gorn in it, and Kirk was pretty funny actually. Yeah, I'll post a link to that in the show notes as well. So it's Kirk. They take Kirk's reputation as the interstellar playboy, right, and make it seem so he catches a case of space herpes from somewhere, and Bones is quick to cure it because as they make a joke in the clip is they can cure anything, and but Bones tells him you have to go and alert all of your sexual partners. So Kurt goes on this quest to find all of his sexual partners, one of which happens to be the Gorn. So the Gorn, he beams down to the Gorn is apparently still on this planet. He beams down and the Gorn turns around. He's got the sore on his lip, and they get into another fight.
Oh, that is
and
too
wind
funny.
up making out.
Yeah, Robot Chicken's a really cool show. It's interesting, and for people that haven't seen it, Jeff, said he'll provide the link. But basically, they take like action figures and do like a stop motion thing with them, and basically do parodies. They do sort of wacky TV commercials. They've done entire episodes devoted to Star Wars. It's really neat, and this Kirk and Gorn one sounds kind of funny. I'm definitely gonna have to search it out.
Yeah, have you seen that one, Jeff?
Yeah, I checked it out. It's I think I'd seen it years ago for some reason. It seemed vaguely familiar to me. Yeah, it's only probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's really short. Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan and you know Kirk's reputation, it's pretty funny because there's a few other cameos in there too.
Yeah, a few, and the one really cool thing about Robot Chicken is that they have all these custom action figures made for this show, and the Star Trek ones they had made for this episode were pretty good. They all look pretty nice. They're really flexible, and the faces were the expressions that they get on their faces are fantastic.
Yeah, well, it almost seems like those Mego dolls were tailor-made for Robot Chicken use, but I guess those are highly collectible and too precious to break out of the box to do wacky stop-motion stuff with.
Yeah, I keep seeing a lot of those at the different conventions I go to for sale, and they usually have a pretty good price tag on them if they're in good shape.
Yeah, and they made a couple years ago some pretty good replicas as well.
Yeah, somebody that I work with, a colleague of mine who actually happens to listen to the show, who will probably hear this episode, just recently came across a City on the Edge of Forever Captain Kirk Mego style doll at a flea market. I think he said he paid $5 for it.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a pretty good find.
And he was in like the street clothes from the 1930s.
Yeah, and it appeared to be new in box as well.
Wow, good for him. That's a score.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool.
So whoever was selling that had no idea what they were holding on to.
Yeah, and if only he got the pair, you got the Kirk with the Spock with the wool hat over his ears. That would have been great.
Yeah, I remember, when I was sort of probably early 90s, late 80s, we were doing yard sales all the time. My family would always do yard sales. It was like, hey, it's spring. We got to clean out, this closet. It's time for a yard sale. And I remember actually in a yard sale, we had like the original, I guess they were, remember like the ultra size Star Wars figures?
Yep.
I don't know if were they 12-inch?
I think they might have been bigger than that.
Yeah. I remember I had a Darth Vader and a Boba Fett that, were out of box and, played with and, pretty beat up and probably didn't have all the weapons and stuff. But I remember I put that into the garage sale because, now you think that and say, oh my God, how could I have done that? But, sort of in the late 80s, that collector's market hadn't really exploded yet.
No, not like it has now.
Yeah, yeah. Jeff Ferry, do you have any kind of interesting or, favorite Star Trek collectibles that you've sort of acquired?
I don't have too much in the way of collectibles. I tried to put a few things onto my Christmas tree. I was allowed to have one Star Trek item, so I have a Klingon battle cruiser that hangs on there.
Oh, nice. I have
Everything
the from quite a few years ago. I'd have to check the date. I have Kirk in the his captain chair on the bridge, and that goes on our tree every year. And then in the rest of the year, he sort of sits in the box on my bookshelf.
Yeah, there's a limit to the amount of nonsense that I'm allowed to put onto our Christmas tree, and my Star Trek limit is at 1.
Well,
Hey, that's a lot more than most people get. So
yeah, but that's a real shame because this year, for 2013, one of the Hallmark Christmas ornaments happens to be a Kirk versus Gorn ornament.
oh, very cool.
I actually own it. It's sitting right here on my desk.
Yeah, I saw it at the Hallmark store this weekend.
Oh, the minute I saw it, I had to buy it, and it's got sound and everything.
Oh, cool. So what is it like a recreation of a scene from the episode, or?
Yeah, it's the scene where the Gorn has trapped Kirk with the rock, and it is now like moving the rock aside and leaning down to stab Kirk with that makeshift stake that it had made.
All right, yeah. So that's like the stinger right before the commercial.
Yeah, it's really neat. I was pretty impressed. It's so well detailed. The Gorn Kirk looks pretty good. He doesn't look exactly like Shatner did. He's close, but the Gorn looks really, really good.
Yeah. Who knows? They might have modeled that that Kirk on his stunt double.
That's entirely possible.
That's one of the things I love about the original series is you see those moments where it's clearly the stunt double, but based on the fact that they weren't watching this stuff on Blu-ray or, on huge screens, that's all stuff that they didn't have to worry about then. It's so funny watching any show really, even going back to like, ER in the early to mid 90s where, you watch that now and you just see the flaws in the set. It's pretty amazing how on their toes, TV shows have to be now as opposed to when the original series was on the air.
Yeah, and don't forget that when the original series was on the air, it was still over the air broadcast. The quality was pretty bad. So even if you did mess up things, that the poor quality of the broadcast and the reception and the video equipment back then, TVs and console televisions would probably cover up a lot of the things that you left out there.
And like you said, if you only get one look at it, you're like, hey, who was that? Was that Shatner? Oh, I guess so. Scene's over now.
Yeah, you couldn't
like
rewind
now.
it or anything.
Yeah, it's not like now where it's like pause, rewind. Hey, wait a minute, I don't recognize that toupee.
Yeah, and there was no internet to document all your flaws back then either.
Yeah. So do we want to talk sort of overall about the Gorn and how underutilized of a species it's been over the entire run of Star Trek?
Yeah, that's one thing that I say is one of my large disappointments about the original series is that I think the Gorn is one of the more iconic and recognizable villains that we have, and they were only used in 3 episodes of Star Trek. One was an original series episode, 1 animated series, and 1 Enterprise. They look slightly different in every episode, based on one was animated and one was computer animated and one, of course, was the rubber suit. But it just seemed like for such an iconic villain that they could have made much more use of them. And I realize it was probably a budgetary thing. But that was a big disappointment that they never brought them back, really.
Yeah, they were. I think, and even in the other 2 episodes they appear in, they're not. I don't remember the animated series episode, but I know in the Enterprise episode, the Gorn is just another guy on the ship. He's not like, it's not like the episode revolves around the Gorn.
No, the animated series one, I think he's just kind of hanging out on some council. He's like a member of a council.
Oh, so he's like E.T. in the Star Wars movie.
Yeah, exactly.
A cameo.
Yeah, and in Enterprise, he was a kind of a slave owner or slave driver or something like that, like a foreman or something of a slave union.
That was just an excuse to have him fight Archer. They were trying to like recreate the fight scene, and it is Sci-Fi Channel bad.
Oh,
that fight.
The weird thing about it is it seems like even a show like Deep Space Nine would have found a way to work the Gorn in. If I think of any Star Trek show, I mean, I'm amazed that Next Generation never went there, when their writers were sort of digging through and looking for inspiration for Next Generation episodes. But with the nature of Deep Space Nine, where it was sort of this hub, if you will. It's amazing to me that nobody thought to work a Gorn in, and basically we're left with the idea that these Gorns were sort of, a highly uncivilized race that, would almost make the Klingons look civil.
Well, if you get into if you look at the wiki and read a little bit about the race of the Gorn, they're hegemonic. They have a hegemony, so they're kind of they rule by fear. They don't really use their muscle all the time to intimidate, but they kind of say, hey, we've got all this muscle, we're a very intimidating race, don't mess with us or we'll kick your ass, and we're scary. So they kind of rule like by bullying in a way, so they don't really necessarily have to make an appearance all the time, but still,
like, they don't even get like Deep Space Nine, especially, where like there's a lot of different races and a lot of different people show up. They don't even get name checked. Like, there's a huge war that goes on for like 3 seasons in Deep Space Nine, and the Gorn don't even get a mention.
No.
So, like, are they that minor of a race in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah. Well, I think they got name checked in Into Darkness, didn't they?
Yeah,
Craig?
they talk about McCoy.
Yeah, giving birth to a Gorn or something.
Giving birth to Gorn octuplets or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's just very strange considering sort of, how iconic this episode is and how iconic the character is. I mean, if you look at the fact that they did a Robot Chicken parody, Mythbusters devoted an episode to whether or not Kirk could have been able to build the cannon. The commercial for the video game, which features the Gorn, it just seems so weird that in all that time, nobody thought to utilize the Gorn. And it's probably one of the biggest missed opportunities in Star Trek history. I
think, and they made action figures and Christmas ornaments out of the Gorn. So, yeah. I mean, it was popular enough that people would buy figurines, right?
Yeah.
So it boggles my mind that they would let that opportunity go to bring them back.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, especially on Deep Space Nine and Next Generation, did someone bring it up and everybody in the room was like, listen, we can't have a guy in a suit walk out here. Like, we're already pushing the boundaries with everybody just having a different forehead.
Well,
yeah, that's actually probably a closer to the truth than I'd like to think. I mean, putting a guy in a big rubber suit was probably really hard to pull off. That's an excellent point.
That, and you got to think back in the Next Generation days, the computer animation on television wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. I mean, they could do static objects like the ship, but you notice when they had other computer animated characters on the show, they didn't look very realistic. I'll go back to that Tasha Yar death episode with that tar monster. Remember the way that guy moved across the ground was kind of weird looking. And then when he actually came up, they had to actually make a kind of, well, he couldn't really be computer animated. He had to be more of a guy in a goopy suit, right? They couldn't even pull that off. So maybe they couldn't realistically do the Gorn without a guy in a suit in the Next Generation, so they opted not to do it.
Maybe it's for the best, because I saw their one try with computer animation, and it was a disaster. Like when they did it on Enterprise. I mean, it looks like Sharkzilla or whatever's in the room. I mean, it's that level.
Yeah, that's actually on the wiki page. If you go down to the depiction section, I thought it was from a video game, and then I saw that it was Slar from the Enterprise episode in A Mirror Darkly Part 2.
Yeah, and if they'd kind of been more conservative with the computer model and modeled it after what the original Gorn looked like, instead of trying to modernize it, maybe it would have been better. I don't know.
I mean, it's a shame, because the episode that it happens in is a 2-parter. It's 2 excellent episodes.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
Oh, I mean, of all the Mirror ones, I mean, it may be my favorite version of the Mirror universe.
A lot goes on. And Craig, you should really watch those seasons, because that's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll eventually get to that. 15 years from now?
Yeah, potentially, if we're both still here.
So there have been all kinds of alien races on Star Trek. Can you imagine sort of a grudge match or a March Madness style tournament that pits the Gorn against another race out there? And how do you think they would fare? And who would you like to see face off against the Gorn if it's not Captain Kirk?
What other race would be good against the Gorn? I mean, you immediately want to go to the Klingons, but that's almost kind of that's strength against strength. I don't know. I think I would like to see the Gorn going against the Ferengi.
I was just gonna say he like negotiates his way out of it.
Yeah, because a Gorn fighting a Klingon is just a big, strong alien fighting a big, strong, scary-looking alien.
I'm going to have to lean a little bit on a different angle, and I'm going to say the Gorn versus the Borg would be kind of cool. And the reason why, though, is because I'd love to see an assimilated Gorn. What would you call that? Like a Bagorn?
Gorg?
Like, it sounds like something you'd buy at IKEA, right? It's like an IKEA item, the Bagorn. But wouldn't that be a much more fearsome looking Borg than a human? Like a lizard Borg?
Yeah. The Borg really seems sort of really hung up on assimilating humans for some reason.
They really do. And it's funny because they keep saying how they've been across countless worlds and galaxies and you only ever see humanoid Borg.
They were like, well, yeah, I'm sure when they went to the director or the producer for that episode, and they're like, well, we're going to need 12 different alien races. And he's like, well, how about we just do 12 humans instead? how about that? You can throw some dots on a guy and boom, there are different, like throw some ridges. That's a different race.
There is a Cardassian Borg. You put a little couple tubes on their head.
You can have a Bajoran Borg, something that only takes 10 minutes out of the makeup session.
Oh, how about a Tribble Borg?
I mean, they had a baby Borg, so I guess they can have a...
Oh, yeah, that was horrible.
Where did the baby Borg show up?
He was in a drawer.
Was this on a Next Gen episode or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember where it was. Yeah, they open it up and it's in there. It's got a few little things attached to it.
Oh, which one was that? It's not Best of Both Worlds.
No, it had to be after that.
So it's either could it be Iborg with Hugh? No, because he was the only Borg on that, right?
They find him.
There's another one.
What is it? Is it Descent or whatever? When Lore shows up.
That might be. Yeah, when Lore has the Borg.
Every Star Trek fan is out there screaming at us right now.
Yeah, that happens a lot with our show. What is the upside to assimilating a baby?
Wait a minute. It might have been a Voyager episode.
Really?
It might have been. Now that I'm thinking about it, because Voyager had so much Borg in it.
Oh, yeah, because once they realized that nobody was watching their show.
Yeah. So they might as well bitch out the best enemy they'd had in years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We talk about, the Borg versus the Gorn. And, a lot of people joke about sort of how slow moving Kirk versus the Gorn was. You could probably go bake a batch of cookies in between punches between a Gorn and a Borg.
That would be awesome, though, man. That would be awesome to watch.
If they ever get another show on the air, the next iteration, you could have, what if you had a Gorn that was part of the Federation? I mean, they had the Klingons out of nowhere, 75 years later. You could just go on there, you got a Gorn navigator.
Hell yeah, man. Or man the weapons console.
Yeah.
Fire the disruptors.
Yeah, it's almost weird that when they did the animated series and they had, they replaced Chekhov with that alien, that, they didn't make that the Gorn.
How cool would that have been if it wasn't that 3-armed weirdo? They could have had a big green Gorn sitting on the bridge.
Yeah, that would have been neat. So in terms of the, I think that most Star Trek fans could probably recreate punch for punch or, double axe handle for double axe handle move from the Gorn versus Kirk fight. And there's been a lot of iconic fights on Star Trek. If we were going to rank them, you probably got to rank that pretty high. I'd imagine, maybe Kirk versus Spock in Amok Time ranks pretty high. What other fights, even come close to that?
I mean, the Spock Kirk fight is definitely probably 1. It is the iconic fight. 2 is probably the Gorn fight.
Yeah,
those are the 2. I think. Yeah, I think your average person on the street, if I showed them a still of it, they're like, oh yeah, that's Kirk's fighting either the lizard guy or Gorn, or they've seen. And most people have seen the Kirk and Spock fight. I mean, I enjoy some of the other fights, but I don't think any other fights are on the same level as those 2 are.
Yeah, and it's funny that Gorn fight, it never bothered me until I saw that other people were sort of bothered by the fact that it was so slow.
And that they really only trade 3 punches the whole time.
Well, you could almost say that Kirk was like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to physically go toe to toe with this guy. It would almost be like a guy getting in the ring with, like Muhammad Ali in the 60s and being like, you know what, this was a bad idea.
Box your ears and run away.
Yeah, to call back to that commercial when he boxes his ears in it and the Gorn screams for like a good 30 seconds.
Yes.
And then Shatner's just like, now you're just overacting.
Yeah. Oh, that is great. So we did get a couple of emails, related to the Arena episode. I have one here from a listener who called himself the Reluctant Red Shirt. And it says, "Hi, Craig and Jeff. The Gorn's popularity really is quite amazing considering that he only appeared in one episode of the series. Even as far back as 1976 in the Topps trading card set, he was featured in 4 cards, whereas poor Sulu was nowhere to be found.
Oh my God.
The cards are numbers 54, 55, 56, 57 if you want to check them out in the Topps trading card book that you recently talked about." And that is kind of a very interesting point, Reluctant Red Shirt. Thank you. And those basically equate to page starting on 122 in the excellent Star Trek The Original Topps Trading Card Series book. And the fact that the Gorn did get 4 cards and appeared over a regular cast member definitely sort of speaks to his lasting appeal, years after the show had gone off the air.
Well, maybe the Gorn was just a little more photogenic than Mr. Sulu was.
So I just grabbed the book. I'm going to actually pop it open here and see what cards they actually did. So the first card is called Blasted by the Enemy, and it's got Kirk and Spock sort of crouched behind some rocks during that initial attack. The next one is called Trapped by the Lizard Creature, and it's Kirk under that rock, and it looks like he's got like beard stubble, which is kind of funny. It must be the picture they used. And then next we have the Gorn Strikes, which is further in that scene. And again, Jeff, you're gonna have to look in this book. That doesn't look like Shatner to me.
Let me grab my copy here as you go through that, and I'll. What page are you on?
The pictures in question are on 125, 124, 125, 126, and 127.
All right.
And then the final picture is Kirk over the Gorn. It's called Earthman's Triumph, and it's basically the moment where he says, "I am not going to kill you." So I can imagine getting this card set in the 70s and just being thrilled as you got more and more Gorn cards, and I wondering when the Gorn cards were going to stop. I don't know if that set came with a checklist or not, but I would have been excited every time I got a Gorn card.
Well, you are absolutely right. I am looking at page 124, 125, and I don't recall that Kirk having a beard in that episode. And the next shot on the next page has the same shot with a beard again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been the stunt double.
Yeah, or they had a really, really dirty negative. I mean,
I don't know. It's the only part of the negative that's dirty, but in both shots?
I guess. It's going to be a mystery until we're eventually able to hopefully talk with somebody involved in the book or the card set.
Yeah, well, and the credits here on each one say Bobby Clark or Gary Combs as the Gorn captain and William Shatner as Kirk.
Yeah, so
they
credit
actually, Kirk.
Yeah.
They credit Shatner. So that's interesting.
Very weird, very weird. We have another mystery to add to our list of Star Trek mysteries.
We certainly do.
Uh-huh. Now, Jeff, do you have any emails there?
I have one short email. It's a very brief sentence from a guy who calls himself I Heart Gorn.
Okay.
And it says simply, have you read any Gorn fan fiction or expanded universe material?
Oh.
So I will say no, I have not. And I don't know about you, Craig, or you, Jeff Ferry, if either one of you have read any of that stuff.
I haven't gone. I'm aware of some fan fiction, and I remember a couple years ago, a coworker of mine was really into this. It was a intricate novel-length fanfic that was basically Star Wars versus Star Trek.
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah.
Ugh.
So that's like really the only fan fiction I'm aware of. I would love to read some Gorn fan fiction. I'd imagine it gets pretty crazy. But there's been some official crossovers that I've been interested in. They did, I believe, a Star Trek X-Men and a Star Trek Doctor Who.
That might be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know about the X-Men one.
I feel like I had the Star Trek X-Men book. I
think...
may have read it when I was younger, but it's just lost to the sands of time in my house.
Kirk beat up Wolverine.
Any fan fiction on your radar, Jeff Ferry?
I gotta say, I mean, as much as I'm into Star Trek, I gotta say Gorn fan fiction is even off my radar.
You have to draw a line in the sand at some point, and fan fiction might be that line, and there's no shame in not going down the rabbit hole that is fan fiction.
I feel like if somebody had a particular one and was like, no, I read this was good, you can read this, I would probably read it. But just to go onto the internet and type in the words Gorn fan fiction, I don't think I can do that.
If any of the listeners out there know of any good Gorn fan fiction, especially one that has a lot of Gorn sex in it, please forward it to me because I'd love to read it.
Yeah, that is too funny. It's interesting because basically when the Next Generation was starting up, they basically reached out to the Trek fan universe and solicited scripts from them. So there are Next Generation episodes out there that may have started as fan fiction and actually became sort of, official Star Trek stories, which is kind of neat. That's always one of the most interesting things about the Next Generation for me was the fact that, they openly sort of solicited scripts from the fans, which is something I think you only could have done around that time. I mean, it would be seemingly impossible to dig through the amount of stuff you would get. But I mean, back then you had to take the trouble to type up your script, print it out, put it in an envelope, go to the post office and mail it, and and then hope a reader picked it up, read it, and dug it. So that's actually pretty neat. So I'm surprised that the Gorn didn't work his way in via that way, and maybe he did. Maybe there's a great Next Generation script that didn't get made because of the the idea that the Gorn would look too silly. We'll never know.
Well, I think we're missing a big opportunity here, guys.
Uh-huh.
Are both of you aware of there are two fan-made Star Trek original series spin-off shows being made right now? You know that, right?
Yeah,
we could write up a Gorn script.
Yeah.
And send it in.
Yeah,
with Gorn sex in it.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but they could definitely the one we talked about that just finished their Kickstarter, what was that? Star Trek Continues. They could get away with a guy in a rubber Gorn suit.
Well, so could the other one, the new Voyages, Star Trek Phase 2. They're in the same exact vein. They have the same kind of sets and the same costumes and Kirk, Spock, McCoy, all the same stuff. So they could get away with there too. So I think we write something up, submit it to both.
Yes.
Maybe they'll both make it.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to engage them with a full frontal assault of
full frontal Gorn nudity.
Yeah.
All he has to do is take his little tunic off.
Oh man, and I think that that might bring us to a logical point where we say, is there anything else either one of you guys want to share about this classic Star Trek episode Arena or the Gorn?
I'll defer to Jeff Ferry first since he's our special guest.
I would say in rewatching it, the thing I always forget about that episode is it takes them a good solid 25 minutes to get to that planet.
Yeah, totally.
It feels like in your mind's eye, I'm like, well, he fights that Gorn for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's really the actual fight is about 45 seconds, but he's in that area for about, maybe 10 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, I
always forget about all of Cestus 3 and chasing after them and all that.
Yeah, I hadn't watched this episode in a while prior to us doing the episodes devoted to it, and I had the same exact memory where I was like, wow, it's going to be 43 minutes of Kirk on that planet. I had good memories of it, but it's definitely probably I'd say a majority of people, that's all they remember from this excellent Trek episode.
Yeah, I think that the fight scene on Cestus 2, the fight sequence on Cestus 3 pretty much dominates the entire episode. Even though the beginning is kind of cool, where they're in that little bombardment area, the war zone, and Kirk does his combat role, and Spock's got his little overloaded tricorder that explodes, and all that cool stuff happens. But, the fight with the Gorn and the whole Cestus 3 sequence, I think just overrides everything else that happens in that episode.
So, Jeff Ferry, before we wrap things up, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. And when we had Vernon and April on their supplemental episode, we asked them what some of their favorite episodes was. So we're going to extend the same question to you, Jeff Ferry. What are some of your favorite Star Trek: The Original Series episodes?
Oh, let me think. I mean, I really do enjoy Space Seed. I don't know if it's just the episode itself. I mean, the episode itself is great, but then knowing that he shows back up in Star Trek 2, so that's almost like a two-parter separated by 15 years.
Yeah, that's really, really sort of an awesome opportunity they had there, and it's so great that everybody was game to do it. I guess mainly Ricardo Montalban. So we are going to do a supplemental episode for Space Seed, and you are more than welcome to join us for that if you'd like.
I will see if I'm in the neighborhood. Perhaps I'll be on SETI Alpha 5 that day and can stop by.
All right,
awesome.
Perfect. So, Jeff Hewlett, anything you want to add before we wrap up this special supplemental episode devoted to the original series episode Arena?
No, I just want to extend another thank you to April Hebert for submitting her feedback via email to me so we could read it on the show, especially the part about the experience. It's always great to have more Star Trek experience stuff, and we look forward to having her on in the future for some other supplemental episodes.
Definitely. Thank you so much, April. And I guess that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and thanks as always for listening.